Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Go ahead and call the Sherman County Commissioners to order. They're all here.
Well, we do have an update, I guess, to start with from Sherman County Community Development. As far as some recommendations, we had a presentation on a housing study a couple months ago, and asked Jaleesa of the Sherman County Community Development to do a short information regarding what are the recommendations from that study. As it went by really fast.
All right, good evening, everyone. This will be kind of short and sweet, just kind of the basic outline of what I've collected in talking with RDG, just kind of what they had recommended. I know that was one of the questions that came up was, where do we start? What is the starting point when it comes to housing? And so they can't give me a direct answer. So I talked with several communities around our area that have been going through the similar struggles with getting housing and all of that, and kind of figured out with RDG's help kind of what are some initial steps we can take to kind of start making the impact right now and where we can go to as we work towards the future. So this will be just kind of a brief overview. I have all these documents that I can send over that are examples. So if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me. This is just kind of an overview just to give you guys an idea of what we can be working towards over the next couple months to a year. So kind of what we have going on right now is the top three that we are looking at updating current codes and ordinances, which I know we are starting with that. I know Jeff is working on a building board and kind of making sure we're up to code, so that was one of the main things. That's also going to help us qualify for grants, other funding opportunities that are out there and programs, just because we'll be up to where we need to be. The second one, current programs that we have are the NRP. And then the new two incentive programs that they did recommend are other that would be kind of a quick turnaround or something that could be directly impacted would be a possible of making a land bank and a rehab program for housing. So some other things that they had recommended for future reference was the MIH, Moderate Income Housing Program, and rural housing development in the RHID. So right now we currently have the NRP. I know that we've had several calls about this. Kind of trying to figure out a way that we can get information to the public about this and kind of make it words more understandable in layman's terms for them to know what exactly the process is and what that looks like. And so I want to work with Michelle at the appraiser's office. How do we make something that I can hand it off to someone and they say, oh, I know exactly what I need to do here. What's my responsibility as that? So I think it's a great program, and I just think we can do a better job at promoting that and getting that information out there. And I know that's something that we've talked about on our board as well from SCCP. So the next thing we're going to talk about is just land bank program examples. One community that's really done a great job, and they've done a whole new housing initiative, is Norton County. So a lot of the examples that I have today, I've actually talked with their economic development, their city commission, and they've kind of all come together as a county to make these programs happen because they know housing is a big thing. So one of them is the free lot program, and one is building on a clear lot incentive. Right here, so building on the clear lot incentive, they have a lot of empty lots, and so what they did is create a program where people pay a portion of whatever the cost of that land is, and they have a certain timeline that they have to meet, and it helps bring people in to build on there, but it also they created a part of it where they get their taxes back based on a rebate program. So like I said, all of these programs that I'm going to show you today are examples. These are just stepping stones for us as we move forward, potential ideas, ways that we can go about it. We can mesh them to what fits Woodland's needs and Sherman County's needs, but we always need a starting point, and there's no reason to start the wheel over, but if you can take it from somewhere else and make it so that it works for what your community needs, it always helps. So that's just one example. The other one is a free lot program. So here in the city of Lincoln County, they actually had a ton of lots open, and they actually had several buildings that had been condemned over the last year. And so if they're just sitting empty and their community starts to look empty and worn down. And so they were incentivizing people to build new homes on those lots to create an appeal for around the community and make it look more attractive. This was a much more complicated phase for them because they had a lot of turmoil with all the empty lots and just kind of getting people to come into town. But I know in talking to them, this has been one of their most successful programs that they've implemented, and they're more than happy to share their insight with us and information. So those are just two programs that I wanted to kind of point out that where we have a lot of empty lots or people looking to build homes, this could be a potential opportunity for us to kind of expedite using those lots that already have infrastructure built on them and not waiting to develop a whole nother area. The next program I want to talk about I think will be really beneficial to us, the rehabilitation program examples. So Norton has done this really well, Dodge City has done this really well, and I know I've talked with Molly Wainscott from Dodge City who kind of took over their Main Street and all of that, helping the Senate Bill 90, which kind of is an RHID and rehabilitating the upper levels of their Main Street area, turning them into living quarters, apartments and stuff. And so with Senate Bill 90, they've kind of extended that into that, and I'll get into that a little bit here in just a second. But the first program is the Fix and Flip program. So pretty much it is for contractors, developers, people who see buildings, they like to flip them and then sell them. That's the whole process of that program there. It's not for someone who's living in that house and will be in there long term. It's for someone who comes in, flips a home, ready to sell it for the people who need it on the market. The next one is Paint the Town. I know we have something, or we've had something like this in the past, but this was something that Dodge City did, and they said it really made a difference in the way their communities looked, and it actually helped to put down a lot of homes in different areas and make the community look nicer. So those are direct impacts that can affect the way our community morale is, and just getting people to kind of jump on that bandwagon of, okay, we need to take care of our homes, which we found in the housing study. Most of our homes were built in the 1940s, so they're all pretty old. They all probably need some work, and so paint could be one of those things that just livens it up and makes it look nicer. So if there's a program that can kind of help benefit that can kind of help turn around some of those, the way they look and how the community looks as well. The next one is the Home and Rental Rehab program. So this is a rebate grant that they came up with in Norton and Lincoln County, where several different groups came together, put money in a fund, and they created a grant that they would only have X amount of dollars that, based on the type of housing, what area it was in, they had to buy all their materials locally, so it kind of helps stir the economic climate as well. They would get so much of a rebate back on the whole cost of the projects. The other one is they came up with some gap financing for rentals. So that's one of the main things that we heard in our study too. We don't have enough rentals for the people that are here, the students, everyone that's coming in. So what they did is they created a program where you could apply for gap financing to help finish or start a project. You have X amount of months to get that done, and then you can start to pay that back, but you have someone hopefully living in there, but helping make those payments easier to close that gap. So those are just some of the recommendations. Here I just put kind of what is entailed. I know it's super small, so I thought it would be for you guys. So I can send these to you again. Like I said, this is really just a touch base and kind of letting you know that we started looking into what the steps would be to make this stuff happen, some ideas that are coming from other communities. This is the Paint the Town from Norton. This is the one from Dodge City. So they have different brackets and everything like that, how it works. The process, it's all application based, so not every project is awarded funding or will go to the next level, but it's all based on what the commission or the board or whoever approves those applications. So it's on a need basis. So if there's a house that needs it more than another, they're probably going to pick that house that needs it a little bit more just because it'll help them get a little bit further. Future programs, like I said, this is way down the line. Just from where we're at right now, not necessarily way down the line, but this is something we can look at once we kind of get some of those smaller steps in place and start to see what that momentum looks like. One of them is the Kansas Moderate Income Housing Program, which now we can actually apply for because we have our assessment done. That was one of the things we couldn't apply for. The way Dodge City used it is they took abandoned houses and they worked with their college their carpentry program and construction program, and they created a funding where that money would go into a pot, and every year they would rehab one more house, an abandoned home. So the students would fix it up, but the money is coming through MIH, and it's just been a cycle that they've been able to keep there. The Kansas Rural Housing Incentive, that's the RHID, that is based on every community as they want. So what that program is about is it helps kind of developers or builders who want to create a development, it helps cover some of that cost based on a bonding or tax that comes up through discussion. That's why I said this is down the line, because we have a lot of other things to discuss before or you guys do. And you kind of allocate certain lots and areas that you have the infrastructure costs pretty much covered by a city, county, or a different organization. So when developers come in, all they have to do is extend that to their residents, build the homes, and then that cost is within that. So kind of what we talked about, or what was talked about with the base grant, kind of what's similar to the Westmore, is that what it is? Yes, the Westmore lot. So something like that, but it's an actual program through the state that they've really had a lot of success with. Dodge City's one of them I've talked to. They've done a great job with their Main Street. They took all their downtown Main Street buildings and were able to convert their upstairs all to apartments for housing. I know when they did their city, they're a much bigger community than us, but they needed like 200 and something homes in order to fulfill the need that they needed. And how they got part of that number taken care of was using those buildings downtown. And I know we have a lot of great buildings downtown that have had apartments in the past or have apartments. So how do you help cover that infrastructure and help get all of those things that are needed up to code and get that cost kind of covered so you can get people in them and get people to remodel those. So this is just some more detail on that. Pretty standard stuff. This is all online and I can send you all of this information. But with all of this, like I said, I don't want to take too much time tonight. This is just an update, some programs that we thought would be great for our community that we can start to work on and develop. One of the things that I would ask is a request to potentially get some type of group task force working together to start looking at how we can implement these programs in our community or what these programs should look like. I think it'd be great if our entities, city, county, SCCD, building official could kind of come together to kind of start looking at that and how do we move forward in implementing something to start making an impact now. Over time, we'll evolve, we'll get start to be able to go deeper into the MIH or the RHID, but I think right now we need to do something that will directly impact our community and people can start applying for now and start seeing that change and that momentum. Any questions? Any comments? Anything that you guys saw that you're wondering how that came about or what other communities are being able to have these developments? I know that's been a question a lot of people have asked me. Well, why does Colby have 30 new homes going in? They have started working on this already. They have all of their stuff in order and we're kind of behind, so we're playing that catch-up game. So I think by doing either trying to work towards a land bank or a rehab program in our community will get us to that point where we can hopefully one day have developers coming in to want to develop a new housing, but right now we have to use the stock that we have and we need to take care of it and get it up to where it's quality for those people who are coming into our community.
Lisa, you were talking about the home rental rehab program. It's a group came together to fund that. Is that a public-private partnership or is that money coming from?
It actually was their economic development, their city, their county, and their community foundation all came together to help fund that program and those rebates. So that's been the one thing that I've learned through several conferences I've been to is it's all of the community groups coming together and saying this is an issue we need to address and it needs to be together, whether it's city limits out in the county, whether it's whatever. How do we address this all together and how do we play our part and help move that forward? And so that's been the thing that I've been hearing from a lot of communities is all those groups are coming together now and having their voice be heard, but also working together to work out some of those things that we haven't been able to reach in the past.
Like Jaleesa said, probably the biggest thing I'd like to get out of it and probably should be back at the individual, at the county commission meeting and at the city commission meeting is asking people to step forward to, one person from the city commission, one person from the county commission, and some staff members from the county and city maybe can't already involved in it. Sometimes it gets too much, but just a small working group to kind of work through some of the details regarding the first couple things that Jaleesa mentioned as far as the land bank and then a rehab program. Because there's some details to go through there that don't want to bog down in a larger conversation, but just have people review it at first and then be able to present a proposal to the full boards at some future meeting. And trying to, because it gets to be a complicated topic. It isn't just a simple, well, that's what we should do. It's more, okay, what are the actual details to present as a possible proposal that would work for this community? And just have a little bit of a working group. And just wondering if that would be okay from both the county commission and city commission's viewpoint tonight.
I think it'd be a good idea because, like you said, if you have this whole group, we've got that many ideas that everybody can throw in, whereas if we have a close-knit group, we can at least start discussing. Still gonna have to go back to our individual commissions and get things straightened out or approved, because they're going to figure out and how we're going to come up with that funding, what amount is that going to be.
And I will say that I know in talking to these other communities, it took them more for 9 months to a year to actually work through these programs to make sure that it fit what they needed for the now, but also 20 years from now, and what the next steps would be to evolve those programs so that it fit that current time. So what they did is they came up with their initial proposal, kind of broke it down for what fit, the whole community, but then they also had on the back end of it recommendations that they would like to see as it moves forward, as it evolves and stuff. So it's not just what's happening right now currently, but what's happening 20 years from now. If say Goodland does have, we boom again and we get up to 2,000 people, how does this program affect that? That would be great, wouldn't it? But just like making sure they see the big picture and not that this is how's a quick fix right now, but how does this implement from there? And so, like Kent was saying, having these conversations and having all these ideas, being able to put those together, and then I can do that legwork too of also reaching out to more communities. Hey, this is something we thought of. Did you guys run into this? Every community right now, I feel is very open to sharing what they've done, what's worked, what hasn't worked, sending me over their documents, just saying, don't even worry about that. Change the name and here it is, because they all know that in order for their community to survive, our community has to survive, and we work as a region. And so everyone's awesome in sharing that information. So we're not in it alone. We're just kind of behind it, so we're trying to play that catch-up card.
You know how Lincoln, they have the lot giveaway? Did the city county purchase these lots, or how'd they do that?
So one of the ways that I know, and I can't remember if it's Lincoln specifically, but I know one community what happened is if there's a building that needed to be condemned, the city took on that property, regardless of if the property owner wanted to give it up or not. So what they did is the city and the county came together to have the responsibility of taking on funding, getting that building taken down, everything, debris and everything, and then they owned it. And what they did is they would, one community gave them away, and they had X amount of months to get the project done if they were going to be, and if they didn't reach that deadline, they had like an extension. Another community, what they did is they got the lot valued, and then they had whoever wanted to buy it and build on it, they paid 50% of what the worth was, so that they had some skin in the game. Because the community that they had talked to before, they had several people that were getting the lots but not finishing the projects, especially when the pandemic hit, because of all the material costs and stuff. So that's one of those things we would have to keep in mind too as we develop some of these programs. Can you get material here for certain things? What's the time frame look like? What fits for our community for that type of thing? So yeah, the city did end up owning that property, and that's how they did that. But they also had lots that were out in the county that the county owned and kind of had the same program. So they worked together so it could work for either or.
That kind of suggestion, I do also agree that there needs an idea that we get representatives, one from each group, board, or whoever all needs to be involved in it together and kind of hash out some general ideas and stuff. That's where different
Steve spoke first, so I think we should do it.
I have a way of organizing things. I have a way of making people come. not afraid to step in and say, I will assist, you know, I'd like to help serve, because I know my colleagues will send the train down the track with I'll be volunteering to do.
I think more opportunities that we have to all work together.
But it's a unique situation in the fact that we know that we have some growth coming in our county and in our city. And how can we grow with them to provide more opportunities to people? It's going to take a lot of legwork, and Julissa, she's already put in a ton of work to get these things. You know, unfortunately, we have to figure out where the dollars are going to come from, or if we can get investors in to start doing this. You know. There's nothing free in this world, so if there are free lots or something like that, it's not going to work. If you have some teeth in it, where they have to have it done at a certain time, or they understand that they work there, and that's better.
Anyone want to volunteer right now, or should we think about it?
That's probably the next meeting.
I'm not doing it right here.
Or should we have the county commissioners pick which one, like the city commissioner?
I think things will go more over.
And separate, I don't know if you got a candidate. If you guys have someone that's interested in it, because with the opportunities they have, I don't know if the building was started, but, you know, if they're looking at 20-some employees and that's a major jump for them. And they're trying to get stuff in. I would like to include them in this stuff.
Be included.
Yeah.
I know we still have to get the evaluation on the city most likely, once that was a part of your,
I did that assessment for you guys too.
okay,
So
so,
it was the whole county.
okay,
So,
great.
Without looking at places, you know, in the county, I don't know how many lots and things that are available, but it's going to be a different look if somebody wants to build outside the community, because some of the opportunities that were here, well, Midwest Energy or the city is going to grant water and sewer for a month. Well, that's all part of the building process. On the country is you're going to have to provide all that stuff. So what is the option there? Yeah, Midwest Energy can maybe work with us on providing electricity, but just sheer thinking of getting the leach field in the sewer system and digging the well and all that stuff. A large undertaking where if they're on a lot, there's sewer and water, electricity pretty close around. But again, those people, if it's a lot that needs to be torn down, and then, you know, starting from scratch, and we need to figure out how we're going to make that work. I just believe in putting the teeth in it, that they understand right up front that if you don't have this done by then, I don't like excuses, but I guess.
and that's something too, is those were the three recommendations, was getting the codes within the city limits up, you know, and I know that's the process that's working, but that's the great thing too about working on these programs is, and I don't mean to volunteer for something else, Jeff, but, you know, having him to say, oh yeah, you know, this is what this is where we were, this is where we need to be, this is what's best within the city limits because of the codes and stuff. That'll help that group who's working on that say, oh, we know this will work because we're moving to this, we're not doing this anymore. So that's kind of that vision too. Is as he updates things, we can have a more updated program or incentive package, or maybe it looks differently. You release it in phases as well. Like we do, okay, we're gonna do, just for example, paint the town or whatever. Then we can do the rehab program because now everything's up to code and there's the standards are set and stuff. So that way, going backwards, it's not, oh, well, at the time when you had this program, X, Y, and Z, this is what the code was. Now this is what the code is. So that's kind of working in conjunction with those. So that's part of that process too.
Yeah, ready to blame us for our meeting.
Yeah, your name's already on the paper, but mine is too. So we're, yeah.
And what this is this is part of to look at what a formal program should be done, but that doesn't mean that other opportunities can
Right.
develop that are outside, a formal program to assist, whether it's current housing stock or new housing stock. This is to look at formal programs to help in that, but that doesn't mean other opportunities might develop generically and just happen anyway, or happen in addition, or not to discourage anyone. Well, it has to fit this box. Well, it may or may not fit that box. And that's when the working group looks at the different programs is, okay, can this fit enough so that it would be profitable for us to use this and to help the community? And I think have a good group of people to take a look at and make recommendations and get some opinions to get the best program for good moving forward.
Lisa, is that SB90, has that been used here before anywhere?
No, it hasn't been used here. The only communities that I know it's been used right now is Dodge City, successfully in a way where it was, talking to the contact there, it was a lot of legwork. It was a lot more difficult than the regular RHID, which I will say when Sharice was here as the interim city manager, I talked with a lot of her contacts from Dodge City and worked with her on developing an RHID kind of starter from what they had done. We were waiting on the numbers to come back from the assessment, but then after talking to RDG, they said right now where we're at, that's kind of down the line. And so starting with something that's a little bit simpler and more impactful right now, then we can kind of, like Kent was saying, as those ideas evolve and stuff, be able to develop that. That doesn't mean that we won't have some, we can talk about that in this working group too, see how do we work towards that. But it would just be a lot of, I guess, conflicting information or programs coming out and not quite sure where we land. Part of that is getting codes and everything up to date to be within that when we release that RHID, from an insurance perspective, from just a contractor perspective, all of those things that what we're looking for when we have those groups come in to develop on those properties and stuff. So I've talked to them, they're open to share, again, their information. I've even been invited to come down and whenever we're ready, the group that wants to come down and check out what they've done to see what that looks like and kind of walk through their office and everything. But everything they've done there is online and they're not afraid to share it. And that's the great thing about kind of working right now is resources are unlimited and people are not being stingy at all. So.
Anything else?
Can we, that presentation and everything, can you send us all of that?
Yep.
It'll be in your inbox.
And I will just go off too, those are just the ones that, since they were close by or similar to our size of community, or I've talked to people directly there, those are the first ones I just wanted to put up as examples because I know that person directly and we've talked about this already, but there's thousands of different programs other communities have used, and I know they're constantly being creative and innovative with how they implement some of these things and what they're doing to use what they have, whether it's their stock that they have now or new development. So, I mean, that's the great thing about this working group is the possibilities are endless. It's just where do you want to start and what do you start with as we move it into the community, so.
Thanks.
All right.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Julie.
Yes.
Okay, I guess we can move on to sales tax discussion. Who wishes to start? You guys comment.
Well, we'd like to promote the continuation of the sales tax that is already, we have until 2023 to renew this and to get that renewed. We've got a lot of stuff that needs to be done. We want to include the city, Canterbury, all of it's in it, but question is, with the cost of everything, how much more do we need? We're bringing in approximately, how much right now?
1.350, 1,350,000
Per year.
for 1%, yeah.
And if you look at the cost of asphalt, cement, all these different items that it's going to take to the chip and seal, and we've got more or less 32 miles. We've got 10 of it that we are in good shape with, another 20 of it that is going to need some work on it. Some of it will be worked in the next year, but they're not going to be able to say, you want this done, we want this done, we'll do it now. You know, then you're gonna have to borrow money and put it in the law before we set it up in a plan of 1 year we work on a road, and next year the city works on something so that we can utilize this money, or wait a couple of years to do something where we have a nest egg built up to where we can have enough money to work on the project and have it paid for instead of having to go to borrowing money or getting bonds or something like that. Because I don't think the bonds are going to look too good if they're already paying the sales tax. The fortunate thing about the sales tax is that everyone pays the sales tax. If you go buy something, you pay sales tax. Now, when we say that also, we need to remember that if the legislation passes reduction of the tax on food, then again, we're going to lose some of that income. So, like you know, having we need to offset that to make it work for everybody's opportunity. And like ours, and then last year we had it's listed exactly what we're going to do within that program.
Another thing we looked at was Canterbury. Just thinking about mobilization charges. You know, if we could get some of their stuff worked in with some of ours at the same time, we're in that general time frame while we're out here doing something for us too. To save mobilization. And it's the same way with cities. It's have to work together. If it's all logistically laid out, where it's all going to fit, but yet all the dollars the bills aren't coming in at the same time, and creating a nightmare for the clerks.
I think if the city and the county are working together, I think people will vote for the sales tax. I have no doubt that will pass. The problem is, we don't get enough money to do the projects. Then you got to go back and raise taxes because you have to finish the project when you start. Nobody wants your taxes. I think if we would go, my personal opinion, if we go like a cent a quarter, I don't think anybody would fall, which would help us. Like I said, we don't know how much we're going to lose if they vote the groceries out. That's what
Aren't they just voting out the state tax on that though? It's just the state tax, the local, they're trying to keep the local, the opportunity to keep your local tax.
Okay.
So, I mean, and they're kind of making you the bad guy that you're gonna tax them on food, but you've got to do that in order to get your projects done.
Well, who knows where we're gonna end up. So, Rod Road got an estimate here, just not very long ago, $185,000 to do a 2-inch overlay. We have 41 miles in the county, eventually to take care of. And I called Mike Hess today with B&H Paving, and he said it's hard to pinpoint the cost of oils up or that. He said, today, you're probably looking at least $200,000 now. I mean, that's how fast things are going up. And so my question is, the 2-inch overlay is fine, but, you know, when you get cracks like what's here, the 2-inch overlay is not going to fix it, so then you're going to go to a 3-inch or 4-inch and think of the cost there. So I personally think we should think and talk about going to like a cent a quarter, so there's enough money to, you know, they got some pretty good projects they want to do, you guys got some pretty good projects you want to do, it's just going to take a lot of money. I don't know if people would vote if we went to 9 1/4, 15%, but it sure help us.
And if you're set a quarter, what kind of breakdown of the
Well, I think that's something we have to work on, is everybody have to set a goal of what they want to do, and then we have to figure out. So like, we want to do 10 miles of pavement, the money set aside. If you guys want to do 3 miles of streets or whatever, it's going to take $2 million, probably set them all up so that as the money comes in, we can figure out which project, you know, take priority. Because we might want to do something, but you might have a problem here that needs to be fixed now, and that's what we're going to sit down and discuss. What needs done first?
Okay, here, what is that, Railroad Avenue?
Yeah.
I mean, that's right by the elevators, that automatically is probably gonna have to be concrete. From the railroad tracks, at least to Main Street, you know. And that might be a multi-phase, you know, with the cost of things, that might be a 2 or 3 year multi-phase project, I don't know.
Working towards where the vacuum plant is, where all that traffic is going to start.
I don't know if you can put a percentage on it. I think it could have to be a group decision on what needs to be done first in the whole community. That's what you thought. Maybe
With asphalt, it's timing is everything. I mean, if you don't get it sealed when you're supposed to get it sealed, now you've just created another problem. You got water getting under the sealed material, getting into the road bed, costs go up. So, I mean, we've got to really be thoughtful of how this all gets done in one order.
Yeah, I think, I like the general idea of what you're saying, but I just wonder how the implementation is going to look over the next 20 years. Or what happens, you know, when we're all long gone out on the seats.
Yep.
There'll be people in there 10 years from now.
Yep.
Have different ideas of whose projects are more important than what needs to be done over there, you know. So unless every project is put on paper from here to the sales tax, that the people would actually love the program.
So you think we should do a percentage?
Oh, and I think realistically, you know, the way to solve major issues in the future as far as where the money needs to be put up, I think is the way to do it. I really think that's kind of the way you can really do it, is determine what percentage of the sales tax you can have, and they have that to work with their, within whatever what they need to get done. I mean, the idea of determining what projects are most important for the county, you know, and working together to get those projects done as they need to be, is a great idea in discussion in theory, but like I said, implementation, I feel, will become very complicated and probably downright impossible in the future trying to do that.
Do you have a number in mind? What do you think the percentage of is split out at?
I don't. I mean, I know probably before it was like, the county was 70% under 30%.
Without knowing what the potential project costs are going to be and how many projects is going to be, that's going to be first thing we have to identify. I high here, and based on project size. But that's something we gotta talk about.
And at the same time, I think it's also a matter of, if you know your budget, you have to look at the budget where you want to go. Sometimes projects don't get done because there's not money for it. It would be nice if there was always money for everything we needed to get done, but there's not.
Well, I mean, you guys seem to be prioritizing your projects, you know what you got. We do the same with ours, they do the same with theirs. Yeah, it'll work through.
That's currently how it's managed now, like just a breakdown percentage. He gets a percentage and then they work with it. I think, Larry, if we did it that way, that probably would in theory, we could all sit down and figure this out in 2 years. If it's really, if it doesn't get along, we're going to be fighting over how much, who gets what for what projects. So I think we just need to prioritize the projects that we have, figure out what the numbers look like, and work towards a common goal.
So right now, if we worked at 9.25, obviously there's different factors, correct, in how that money is divided up, or how each entity gets whatever percent of the taxes, correct?
There isn't right now.
Yeah, that's kind of
That's where we gotta go.
What about in 10 or 20 years, build into that some type of a, if you're at this point, you get this percentage, or, right?
Well, there could be some hypotheticals here. What if Midland all of a sudden takes on massive growth within city limits? That's changes things. It could potentially change. So I think you have to reevaluate.
we get massive growth in the city, which would be great. Those would also be some profits.
Yeah, there's no serious
On the sales tax, generate more.
I think the issue I see the most is that when we talk to the public about it, we're not raising the 1 1/4, we're raising the 1/4% sales tax. Because we've already got the 1 cent on the books now.
We're asking for continuance of that one.
Yeah, and we're adding 1/4 to that one for another 20 years, because if they hear it as we're going to increase it 1 1/4, then they're going, God, look, how much more money do you want? You're going to tax us, we're the highest taxation already, and now you want this. We need to make sure that they understand first that it is a 1/4% sales tax. Continuation, there's nothing new. We're going to continue with what we have and then increase it by 1/4. That would be one of your bigger sales items, is that we've got to be able to convince them that we can make this work. Because we fair what projects we want, but if that doesn't pass, then we're back to scrambling to figure out what we're going to do.
Well, I guess first we need to decide if we would all be agreed to raise it to 1/4. Or whether I think we can stay at 1. That's the first step. Do we think we need to stay at 1 cent, or?
I think there's going to be a couple factors that we'll have to take into consideration. And there's a couple of parts of it. I think it isn't just a matter of going, well, let's raise it to 1 1/4. And I don't mean to be disagreeable on this, and there's other variables that get involved here. One is with the inflation costs, which we don't know what it's going to be. It's going to continue to increase. We can guesstimate construction costs all we want, but we may fall short. And so that, when the messaging goes out regarding either 1%, 1 1/4, 1 1/2, whatever it is, something to address as part of this. The other thing, when it was mentioned at the beginning regarding, do we do a smaller project each year? Or do we put the projects together and do a larger project and then pay it off over time? There's a concern about financing costs or the cost to borrow money against the proposed sales tax. What it does do is provide a little bit of certainty. If you would be able to get the projects done within the next 2 to 4 year time frame, you would only have to worry about inflation costs for the next 2 to 4 years. And then you would have the sales tax generated over 10, 15, 20 years, however long the issue is going to be. And then, so you would have a certainty, a little bit of certainty. I wouldn't say complete certainty, because I have no idea where inflation is going to go. But it's going to be increasing even more than what we've seen. A little bit of certainty to have those construction costs in the next 2 to 4 years. If you wait 5, 7, 9 years to do a construction, oil could come back down, yes, because it goes up and down. And same with concrete materials, but more than likely it could be 8 or 9 years worth of inflation increases. So your savings to not have the debt costs, is that going to be the same as what your inflation costs? And to me, that might be a losing battle. I would just suggest that could be a losing battle. So part of the process is thinking is, are we going to do the projects a little over time or a bigger project at once? The previous 20-year bond, they took their group of projects and did them all within a short time frame. Basically from, I think the tax started in 06 and they were done by 2010. Even with the extras that come at the end of the project. But most of the construction was done 7, 8, 9 time frame. And then we've been paying it off, and we've been able to pay it off, and we've actually done a pretty good job to be able to pay it off earlier than the 20-year time frame. It ended up only 17 years, be in the middle of 2023. The other thing when you get smaller projects is it often is the unit cost goes up. If you can have a larger project, you invite a little bit more competition and a little better price on your wholesale. It doesn't, in today's environment, I don't know. We'll see that here as we go along, but we'll see if they say anything different as they do the airport one way this summer and do 17th Street this summer as well on this portion. So those are a couple other variables as we discuss this and make sure we're together and on target when we present this issue to the public. And I'll give you an example, and it's just numbers. I know I can rattle off numbers fairly quickly. But just like Ashley said, the tax right now is generally 1.3 to 1.35. A little bit more than that per year. For the city, what Mary said earlier today, we're getting close to $650,000 a year based on the percentages that we're receiving from sales tax. So if the same percentage, the same 1%, and the same percentages continue forward, let's just say $650,000 a year. So you have it over 10 years, and I'm just using 10 because it's easy. Quick multiplication is $6.5 million. Now for the construction costs, and I got this earlier from Andrew at EDH, He said, right now, construction to do, and for ours purposes, probably the primary project, the first project is 8th Street from Delisle to Caldwell. But the Delisle to Main is 10 blocks. It's 45 feet wide, it's 400 feet long per block. It ends up about $300,000 per block. So they redo all the concrete and the curb and gutter and redo, tear out the current asphalt. So if you multiply that by 10, you get $3 million. And he was saying with inflation, it increased by 20% right now. And I put it at 25% to make it $400,000 per dollar. That's $4 million. The extra 4 blocks from Main to Caldwell, so it makes it 14 blocks total on that 8th Street, would be another $400,000 per block, is $1.6 million. So you end up at $5.6 million total. $4 million for the 10 blocks and $1.6 for that. 5.6, and then if you add a little bit of engineering costs, a little bit of financing costs, if you would do it as a bond and then pay it off, you can easily get from that 5.6 to, and then have a little bit extra for little things to do, whatever goes on. You'd be at that 6.5. So 10 years of the portion that was dedicated to the city prior, if it was done again, that would accomplish the 8th Street project. Now, the other two that have been mentioned by this board and by staff of the matter was to finish 17th Street, which is another 6 blocks, and then to do Caldwell from 10th to 17th in asphalt. So as far as years, that probably, you go the other 10 years, if it would be a 20-year. But I was just using it, if we did 10 years, did the 1%, the city could do the one project on 8th Street. Probably, maybe. And then probably, because of construction costs exploding out, have to take out 3 or 4 blocks to do or something. But that gives a quick estimate of how that could occur. That doesn't mean with, the need that's coming about in Canarego, the need from the county to do an awful lot of Highway 24, then there might be reason to say there should be a 1.25 put to a ballot. But I'm just giving you that as an example of how it could fit with the cities and what the city commission has said prior regarding what type of project to put forward. And when Rod, you asked directly, what project you want to do, that's the city's primary project. It doesn't mean they're losing other projects in addition to that. And it's really not going to look for something, well, we need to do something, so we need to come up with a project. This is something that's pretty primary for the town. So, but it's those other variables that are kind of getting hard, to get any certainty to say what it's going to work for. I mean, that's, I just want to make sure there's consideration of that, as we discuss whether we're going to do projects as we go along and pay for it, which is great, but it might be a losing position overall if inflation is more than what you save from the debt costs. So, I don't know.
Yeah, it can be hard to get companies to come in and do a small job. That's not the easiest thing in the world.
Well, and then on small jobs, you have more small jobs that
the relocation fees add up after a while.
Yes.
Of course, the catch-22 is inflation goes up. You're going to look higher interest on the bond.
Might have higher interest rates. You also might have, like I said earlier, you might have additional revenue generation because things cost more. You'll have the 1% will actually generate. So, but that's too hard to guess over.
Like you said, the oil cost and the concrete cost, they're gonna fluctuate. We know that labor costs are never gonna go down again. If it is, it's such a depression that, so we know that we've got to figure in cost of labor, the project cost is gonna be more. We do have a low variable in the oil and the concrete, but, we might as well shoot on the high side than the low side because it's going to be very, very difficult to do. And the idea of doing a project, doing a lot of them now, and then paying the interest on it might be a good idea in the fact that, you have it done. Now you know that we're bringing in X number of dollars for sure. What is our financing cost? And we have some things that we can lock in some money again.
Might be a possibility.
So on sales tax issue like that, just thinking, so let's just say let's say we did a percentage on the sales tax, and you got 400, 500,000 coming every year. Pretty well.
Right.
So we all agree on it. And let's say all of a sudden the city says, I want to do a $6 million project. Is it legal and capable for you to then go get the bond and pay your payment on sales tax for the bond?
Yeah, in fact, I think that's what the city did 20 years ago. Is the financial guarantee was the amount that was being received from the sales. So the city can do it on its own. It's not need the county's participation in the bonds.
I thought the bond issue, everything was already all included as one bond. Yeah.
Was it both, Mayor?
There's one bond.
Yeah.
But
I'm asking them now, to split it out into different ways. Just a
That would be something you need to ask bond counsel.
Yeah. Because before it's just one issue, one amount. And then everybody did their project that was in that bond issue. And the sales tax couldn't pay it all, it wasn't split out. I think that's right.
We tracked all the projects through the bond. The county tracked theirs, we tracked ours,
Yep,
but it was one issue.
yeah.
And that's why the county's paying it off, because it was an issue for the county.
Right.
We'll confirm if it did, but I'm 99% sure that it can be.
Done that the other way. Yeah. Once, I figured it could,
So if only one entity wanted to do it through the debt mechanism, they could do it that way.
You have any thoughts over there?
I'm learning. I'm listening. Connecting information.
Had railroad ever been paid before?
No, the only one was Main Street.
2 blocks of the street that asphalt on there.
Well, what's the next step?
Well, I think we all whether it's 1 cent or a cent a quarter, whatever.
I might think, what it covers is the need that has to be. And if something that's gonna have to be financed, one way or sales tax, just start away at anything. Probably doesn't. The issue is, how much do we want, how much do we think we get, basically what we need to determine.
Well, I don't think we're gonna have any trouble in this group justifying what we're doing. But to what extent do we approach the public? We know the consensus is everything's going up. Everything's crazy. People hear the word tax, they freak out. But I'm never afraid to put something to the vote. It's their decision. And I think we'll probably regret shooting ourselves in the foot if we don't give ourselves a little bit extra. Because I think it's going to be regrets.
Well, on the flip side of that, if you're asking for more, you could possibly shoot yourself in the foot by eliminating it altogether. You could completely put it down. So I could.
Yeah, if that happens, then we can either try to regroup and try again in a different way, or try to find financial solution. I mean, the sales tax happens to run out before we re-up it. It doesn't mean you can't re-up it again after the tax. Would it be a lot easier if we can just keep it going? I think absolutely.
That would be a lot easier to continue than to start over.
That's right.
Well, I don't know, the discussion with you, but I've already got, I've already got some calls, people lying about their taxes. And that's normal, no one likes taxes. And all you gotta say is, okay, well, would you vote to continue sales tax or to raise the tax? Discussion's all right then and there. Bring that sales tax on.
Well, the sales tax makes everybody pay for it.
Exactly.
Passes through the rent, everybody pays for it.
Yeah.
And why not utilize that tax money that comes off of it?
Yes, exactly. I don't think it'd be any trouble getting passed, like I say, if the city and county is agreements. That was, everybody voted for it, if we're all in agreement, but this is what needs to be explained.
If I may suggest, I think there's 3 or 4 items that could just be answered. We can do it back at the individual city commission meeting. We can come and have you guys and have Ashley present information that to kind of refine the details as far as, what do these guys think, 1 versus 1 1/4 versus 1 1/2 or whatever that percentage is. What's the percentage difference that they'd like to start, from, proposed from? And then, how many years do we make this go? Do we ask for? Do we ask for 10, 15, 20, whatever, that is? Get those answers, come back, see if there's agreement, and then start working through the nuts and bolts. I mean, if there's another question or two beyond those, suggest it. We need that answer before we can meet again and say this is what we want to do. Would that be the best way to move forward?
Yep, I agree.
Well, our first agreement is that it has to be, we've got to keep it.
Correct.
Right. That's all. We know that.
Gotta do this, we gotta be involved.
I mean, a lot of this, that any improvement here, whether we do 10 blocks or 7 blocks, I mean, it's going to be big for us. It'll be nice.
Well, I think that each entity, the county or the county and the city, each of us need to sit down and figure out how much money we'll think we'll need come up with how much we need in a roundabout way.
You know, and then that'll determine, you know, the years that we were requesting. You know, we could be overshooting, we could be undershooting. And then that also could play into, you know, whether we ask for 1.2 for the 1.25, or we stay at 1. I think that's, I don't know how much your guys' project is, but, you know, I would figure it up to, you know,
The nice thing is he gave you a good close number on.
2.1.
Yeah.
Like about $400,000.
Yeah.
That's for a really wide street, really narrow ones you can come around.
Right.
For those trucks, when if you actually have that curve, you don't want a little bit wider.
I don't know, the discussion has been around roads and streets too. Is that what it has to stay tied to, being some other infrastructure issues?
No, when we've thrown out
Yeah.
this parking lot out here, for example, someday, our jail parking lot is shot. The alley between the jail and the courthouse, that needs to be valued out, drained out both ends. There's other projects.
So keep that, right, keep it on, it doesn't have to be necessarily concrete streets.
Right.
Yeah, we have an impression of different avenues, different ways. The patio plan has kind of been the stepping stone of different platforms and different ways that we want to improve Kenneredo for growth. So it doesn't die out.
Glad to see some growth out there, that's great.
We're excited.
Do you want to try to get back together in about a month? And kind of give us all plenty of time to
Give
kind
us
of figure
time
out what
to put some
we don't
things
think our
together.
priorities are and kind of split it and
We've got to keep it going. If we get where we need to get.
When does that have to be on the ballot? What do you have to get the thing finished with the ballot?
I need to know by August?
Okay, so we've got like 3 weeks.
somewhat of a deadline.
yeah.
I mean, it's for bond council and we have to write it, I mean, it's not a quick process.
So we would,
Yeah, that's for bond council for the question.
would be better to shoot for July.
Sooner than later.
Sooner than
So yeah, let's meet in a month for sure.
perfect.
April 11th, about a month. Another 4 weeks. Yeah, okay.
Just on a different note too, my managed subway, I was always told that Arby's or that area around there had a higher tax rate. Where does,
So that's
just
something.
give you a feeling for that?
That's
Brand new on here.
That's
Has it?
expired.
Has it? Okay.
Yeah, there was a CID, a community improvement district.
Gotcha.
But you have to specify the district and what land is in that district.
Okay.
And then they issue a tax on that, but they have to issue, they have to give you the costs of what they're trying to reimburse that tax.
Okay.
But that one has expired.
Has to be the road, right? Is that right?
But that,
Those just to build all that structure around.
that, for that one it was.
For that one.
That just expired today.
Yeah.
It expired December 31st.
Oh, okay.
When we're looking at, April 11th, 5:30 here again.
I think so. Think that'll work for you guys?
Yep.
All right, we'll just plan on that. Any other further discussion tonight then? Good. If not, entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting. 6:40 p.m. Moved by I'll second. Second by Mr. Howard, all in favor? Aye.
Motion for adjournment.
Second.
Second, all in favor, aye.